The Nairobi sky was painted gold that afternoon, the kind of light that made everything look softer, more romantic, almost unreal. The Windsor lawns were draped in ivory roses, champagne glasses shimmered in the sun, and a string quartet played quietly near the water. Every guest turned to watch the glass doors open, the moment everyone had been waiting for. The bride appeared. Lydia. Radiant, graceful, her white gown flowed like clouds and her skin glowed against the veil that framed her face. Every step she took down the aisle looked like a scene pulled from a dream. Her smile trembled, a woman overwhelmed by joy. And just behind her, walking slowly, carefully holding her bouquet and fixing the edge of her train, was Nadia, her best friend since university. Nadia was stunning. Her satin blush gown clung in all the right ways, her caramel-brown skin gleaming beneath the afternoon sun. Long curls brushed her shoulders, and her makeup was flawless, elegant, not loud. She looked like perfection. But her heart wasn't calm. Because at the end of that aisle, waiting for Lydia with nervous eyes and a proud smile, stood Ethan. Tall, handsome, clean-cut, his dark brown complexion shone in the light streaming through the glass ceiling. His broad shoulders filled his charcoal suit effortlessly. When he turned, his eyes found Nadia, and lingered. It was just 1 second, but in that single heartbeat, Nadia felt her stomach twist. Because she knew that look. It wasn't the look of a stranger. She smiled quickly, pretending not to notice. Her fingers tightened around the bouquet. When Lydia reached him, Ethan's smile softened. "You look incredible," he whispered, voice trembling with emotion. The guests sighed in admiration. The priest began his words, and the air filled with the quiet beauty of promises. Nadia tried to focus on her best friend's happiness. She really did, but her mind wandered. Not to the vows, not to the music, but to the echo of something unspoken between her and the man saying "I do" to someone else. When the crowd applauded and the couple kissed, Nadia's clapping came a second late. Lydia turned to her, laughing and crying all at once. "Can you believe it, Nad? I'm married." Nadia forced a smile, her throat dry. "You deserve it," she whispered. The reception came alive with music, laughter, and light. Chandeliers shimmered above crystal tables. Lydia twirled barefoot across the dance floor, the train of her gown flowing around her like a cloud. Ethan couldn't stop looking at her. He looked like the happiest man alive. And yet, sometimes, his eyes found Nadia. When the band took a break and the crowd shifted to the outdoor garden, Nadia stepped aside for some air. The city lights glowed in the distance. Her heart still raced. The scent of roses mixed with the faint sound of laughter inside. Then she heard his voice behind her. "You look beautiful tonight." Nadia turned, startled. "You shouldn't say that," she said softly. "Not today." Ethan stepped closer, his voice low. "It's the truth." For a moment, neither spoke. The tension between them felt wrong. Wrong, but magnetic. The night breeze carried the warmth of his cologne, the same one she remembered from before. "Ethan, we can't," she started. He smiled faintly, eyes shadowed. "I know." But neither of them moved. From inside, Lydia's laughter broke the moment, sweet and innocent, unaware of the electricity that had just passed outside. Ethan finally turned back toward the hall. "Take care of her for me, okay?" he said, his voice steady now. But his eyes still holding hers longer than they should. Nadia nodded, but her pulse didn't slow. "Always," she murmured. When she walked back inside, Lydia ran to her with the bouquet. "Catch!" she yelled, tossing it playfully. The white roses landed in Nadia's hands. The crowd cheered. Lydia hugged her tightly, giggling, "Maybe you're next." Nadia forced another laugh, but her heart pounded as Ethan glanced across the room again. Just a flicker of a look, but enough to say everything words couldn't. And that moment, that tiny silent exchange, became the seed of something dangerous. It started with a phone call. 3 months had passed since the wedding, and Nairobi had long settled back into its rhythm. Traffic, deadlines, laughter, and secrets hiding under the hum of city lights. Lydia was glowing, her Instagram filled with photos, Sunday brunches, matching outfits, my forever captions. She looked like the picture of happiness. Nadia double-tapped each post, left her comments, and smiled at the screen. But inside, she burned with a hollow ache, her body remembering the dreams of Ethan, his hands on her, his breath against her neck, waking her slick with sweat and shame. He was her best friend's husband, and she hated how her fingers drifted between her thighs at night, replaying that whisper outside the hall. Then one evening, as the sun melted behind the Ngong Hills, her phone buzzed. "Hey, Nadia, Lydia said you weren't feeling well. Are you okay?" She hesitated, her pulse racing, before replying, "I'm fine, just tired. Work's been crazy. If you need someone to talk to, I'm around. I'm just nearby, actually." Nearby. That word ignited something primal in her. Nadia stared at the screen, her heart pounding. She knew she should say no, but the loneliness gnawed at her, amplifying the heat pooling between her legs. "Okay, just for a bit," she typed. Minutes later, his car headlights swept across her driveway. She opened the door, fighting to look composed, but her nipples hardened under her thin shirt at the sight of him. Ethan looked different, worn, his shirt sleeves rolled up, tie loosened, revealing a hint of chest that made her mouth water. "Lydia's away at her mum's," he said quietly as he stepped in. "She said you were stressed, so I thought I'd check on you." The air between them crackled with unspoken hunger, thick enough to taste. Nadia crossed her arms, trying to hide the way her breasts rose with each breath. "You shouldn't be here." "I know." But he didn't move, his eyes tracing her body like a predator sizing up prey. Her apartment smelled of vanilla candles and the metallic scent of impending rain from the balcony. Outside, thunder rumbled, echoing the storm building inside her, and she turned to pour juice, her hands shaking, just to break the tension. "So, how's marriage life?" she asked, her voice husky. He chuckled dryly. "Different. Good, mostly. Just different." Something in his tone pulled her gaze to his, raw, hungry, stripping away her defenses. Their eyes locked, the silence stretching, charged with electricity. He stepped closer, his scent, cedar and musk, invading her senses, making her thighs clench. "I didn't mean to make things weird at the wedding," he murmured, his voice low. "That moment outside, I keep thinking about it." Nadia froze, her core tightening. "Ethan, I know it's wrong," he said quickly, "but I can't pretend I didn't feel something, like how your body felt against mine in that dream I can't shake." Her throat tightened, but her body betrayed her, leaning in. "Don't say that, please." Yet even as she protested, her lips parted, imagining his tongue exploring her. The room fell silent except for the rain's hiss and their ragged breaths. City lights shimmered through the curtains. When he brushed a strand of hair from her face, his fingers lingered on her cheek. She gasped, and in that moment, restraint shattered. The kiss was slow, then fierce, his lips crushing hers with a hunger that made her knees buckle. His tongue invaded her mouth, tasting of desperation and sin, while his hands roamed her body, cupping her arse and pulling her hard against his growing erection. She moaned into him, her guilt twisting into a savage need, her hips grinding instinctively as his fingers slipped under. Their bodies pressed together, heat building, clothes disheveled and breaths ragged, until the line between wrong and want blurred into oblivion. When they finally tore apart, both trembling and slick with sweat, she whispered hoarsely, "Lydia." "I know," he murmured, eyes squeezed shut, his voice thick with regret and unresolved hunger. "I know." They lingered in heavy silence, the rain lashing the windows like accusations, thunder crashing as if the heavens were condemning them. He slipped out an hour later, no farewell, just a lingering glance that promised more danger, vanishing into the storm's fury. Nadia collapsed onto the couch, her heart thundering in her chest, threatening to shatter her. Staring at her reflection in the mirror, she saw a woman transformed. Makeup smeared like war paint, hair a wild mess, lips bruised and swollen from their illicit passion, regret clawing at her, but powerless against the thrill that still pulsed through her veins. The candles sputtered out, plunging the room into shadow. She had crossed the line, and once a line like that is crossed, there's no uncrossing it, only the sweet, destructive pull toward more. Days turned into weeks, and every second carried the weight of that night. Nadia told herself it was a mistake, a moment of weakness, a lapse in judgment. She deleted his messages, avoided Lydia, and drowned herself in work. But guilt has a way of whispering even in silence. Every time her phone vibrated, Her heart raced. Every time Lydia called, her voice trembled. One afternoon, as Nairobi's sun burned gold across the skyline, Lydia invited her over for dinner. "Ethan's been distant lately," she said on the phone, her tone uneasy. "I just miss how things used to be. Maybe having you around will lift the mood." Nadia froze. The irony stung deep. "Of course," she forced a smile. "I'll come." That evening, the city was alive. Matatus honking, laughter in the streets, the smell of roasted maize mixing with perfume as people hurried home. Nadia stood outside Lydia's apartment door, heart thudding like thunder. When Ethan opened the door, their eyes met. 1,000 memories in a single second. He looked nervous, the kind of nervous that doesn't hide well. Lydia's voice came from the kitchen. "Nadia, you came. Come in, come in." Dinner started like any other. Laughter, inside jokes, wine refills. Lydia looked radiant in a yellow dress, her joy almost blinding. Nadia watched her, the weight of guilt pressing harder. At one point, Lydia leaned in and whispered, "Do you think he still loves me the same?" Nadia blinked. "Why would you ask that?" "I don't know," Lydia said, her voice cracking slightly. "He's been quiet lately, distant. Sometimes I feel like he's here, but not really with me." Nadia's throat tightened. She looked at Ethan, who was now staring into his glass, his jaw tight. "Maybe he's just stressed," Nadia said softly. "You two are perfect." Lydia smiled faintly, but her eyes didn't. Later that night, after Lydia stepped into the kitchen, Ethan stood. Their eyes met again, this time panic in both. "Stop looking at me like that," Nadia hissed. "I'm trying not to," he said quietly, "but it's like I can't help it." Her pulse quickened. "Ethan, please, she's right there." "I know," he said, stepping closer. "And that's what kills me." Nadia stepped back just as Lydia returned with dessert. The air in the room shifted, tense, sharp, unspoken. Lydia noticed. "Is everything okay?" she asked, glancing between them. "Yes," they said in unison, "too fast." That night, Nadia left early, claiming a work emergency. As she stepped outside, the cold air hit her like truth. She leaned against the wall, trembling. "This has to end," she whispered to herself. But fate wasn't done. 2 days later, while Lydia was getting ready for work, Ethan's phone buzzed on the counter. A message preview lit up. "Nadia, I can't keep this secret anymore." Her heart stopped. She froze, phone in hand, eyes wide. She tapped the message thread. Dozens of deleted texts. Then one that wasn't. "Ethan, last night was a mistake, but I can't stop thinking about you." The world tilted. Lydia's breath caught, her chest tightening. She stood there, silent, her hands trembling so violently the phone almost slipped. Her mind replayed every recent moment, the awkward stares, the forced laughter, the dinner tension. It all made sense now. When Ethan came downstairs moments later, she was standing by the window, phone in hand, face pale. "Lydia," he started. She turned, tears glistening in her eyes. "Don't say a word," he froze. "I saw everything," she whispered. "Everything." He took a step forward. "It wasn't what you think." "Don't lie to me," she screamed, her voice cracked through the quiet apartment. "You slept with her, didn't you?" He didn't answer. Silence. A silence louder than words. That silence broke her. She threw the phone at him, her tears turning into a sob. "My best friend, Ethan? My best friend?" He tried to reach her, but she backed away. "Don't touch me." She sank onto the couch, shaking. The betrayal wasn't just from him. It was double-edged, from the woman she called sister. "I loved you both," she whispered. "And you both destroyed me." He stood there, guilt written across his face, knowing there was no defense left. As Lydia sobbed, the evening light dimmed through the window. Nairobi's skyline flickering in the distance. The sound of a passing matatu echoed faintly, almost mocking. By the time night fell, Lydia was gone. She packed a small bag and walked out without looking back. And for Nadia, the silence that followed was worse than any storm. Because once truth walks in, love never walks out the same. The next morning, Nairobi was drenched in rain, the kind that soaks through silence and memory alike. Ethan sat alone in the living room, his hands buried in his hair. The echoes of Lydia's screams still burned in his mind. His phone vibrated again, this time from Nadia. Nadia, she knows. He didn't reply. What could he say? Meanwhile, across town, Nadia sat on her bed staring at the ceiling. Her apartment felt colder, emptier. The sound of the rain outside only made it worse. Every drop was a reminder of guilt, of shame, of the moment she crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. She tried calling Lydia. No answer. She sent a message. Delivered, not read. She wanted to run, to hide, to scream. But there was nowhere to go. That evening, she finally got a text. From Lydia. Lydia, meet me tomorrow, 5 p.m., the cafe near the junction, alone. Nadia froze. When the next day came, the sun returned. Bright, cruelly beautiful, as if mocking her misery. The cafe was half full, music low, the smell of coffee lingering in the air. Lydia was already there, sitting by the window. Her face looked different, harder, calmer, but with eyes that had cried more than they should have. Nadia walked in slowly, every step heavy. When their eyes met, the world fell silent. Neither spoke at first, then Lydia broke it. Why? The word hit like a blade. Nadia swallowed hard. I don't know, she whispered. It wasn't planned. It just happened. It just happened, Lydia repeated, her voice trembling with disbelief. You were supposed to be my sister Nadia. I trusted you with everything. My home, my man, my happiness. Nadia's eyes filled. I hate myself for it. Every second. Lydia, please, I'm sorry. Sorry? Lydia laughed bitterly. Do you know what sorry sounds like after betrayal? It sounds empty. Nadia reached for her hand, but Lydia pulled back. I looked at you at my wedding, Lydia continued, her voice breaking. You stood right beside me, smiling, helping me fix my veil, and months later you… She paused, fighting the tears. You slept with him. Nadia's tears finally fell. Lydia, I never meant to destroy you. I was lonely, confused, and he made me feel seen again. Lydia's jaw tightened. So my husband made you feel seen? The same husband who promised me forever? Silence filled the space again. The rain started outside, faintly tapping against the window. Nadia's voice was small. I ended it the next morning. I couldn't live with it. I wanted to tell you so many times, but I couldn't. Lydia looked at her, eyes glistening. And now you did. But the damage… She exhaled sharply. The damage doesn't erase. Nadia lowered her gaze. I know. A long pause. Only the sound of spoons clinking and muted conversations filled the background. Then Lydia leaned forward, her tone quiet but firm. You broke something that can't be fixed, Nadia. But I won't hate you. Because hate would mean you still matter to me. You don't anymore. Nadia's breath hitched. That sentence cut deeper than any insult. As Lydia stood to leave, she dropped a final whisper. You lost a sister today. Not because of what you did once, but because you let guilt come too late. She walked out, her heels echoing against the cafe floor, her silhouette fading into the rain. Nadia sat there, frozen, staring into her untouched cup. The world outside was moving, cars, laughter, life, but inside her, everything had stopped. Hours later, as she finally stepped out, she saw Ethan standing by his car, soaked. I had to see you, he said quietly. She shook her head. Don't. We've done enough damage. Nadia, please. Ethan, she interrupted, her voice trembling. You need to fix what's left. Go after her. Don't make this worse. He looked at her, guilt and longing battling in his eyes. I can't undo what we did. She turned away. Then at least don't destroy what's still standing. And with that, she walked into the rain, slow, steady, each step dissolving into the chaos of the city. Behind her, Ethan stood watching, lost. Ahead of him, Lydia was gone, and in between them, nothing but regret remained. Weeks passed. Lydia moved out of Nairobi. To Mombasa, her family said. Ethan tried to reach her, but never succeeded. Nadia stopped answering calls altogether, burying herself in work. They became ghosts of what they once were, living but haunted. Because in the end, betrayal doesn't always end in rage. Sometimes it ends in silence, and the slow realization that what you destroy in a moment of lust can haunt you for a lifetime.